Welcome, BFX community. Well, kicking off after Fleur Chambers, our meditation expert, wellness comes in all areas of our life. And this is one that I certainly didn't think of when I was thinking about wellness, but it actually makes very good sense, particularly when you think of sayings like getting your house in order. That can have many different meanings. I'm joined by interior designer expert, Tara Cantwell. And today we're going to talk about how our living arrangements, positioning, furniture, all sorts of things can influence our mental and our physical health. Tara, thanks for joining the Bare Facts after a few false starts. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's pretty exciting, and it's been nice having a chance to have a look at some of the stuff that you do and jump into the podcasts that you've been recording. It's really nice to hear different guests and different sides of things.
Good, Tara. How did you get into interior design?
Look, it's a second part of my career side of things. I wasn't someone that rearranged the Barbie house or did things like that when I was younger. My history is in community services. So I, originally have been working in disability, in hospital settings, things like that. And I just started getting little reminders or little tweaks and suggestions, from the universe or from whoever it may be, whatever deity you might like to follow, just that I might like to consider other things. And so, I had this experience. I was working at a big private hospital, and one of the things that they offer is a wig salon for people experiencing cancer treatments. And so there's all these wig salons in different areas, and they wanted one in one of their hospitals. And they said, all right, we want it to have volunteers. And I was managing the volunteers at the time. And so our team was tasked with setting up this wig salon from an interior design perspective. We had a crappy room and we were asked to set it up. And it was just my first experience of just how powerful the room and the environment itself can be for people's health. I mean, it was in an old uniform area. And so there was clutter, there was crappy carpets, there was terrible paint. And you knew that women receiving a wig, if they were having a free wig while they were in the chemo chair, perhaps it wouldn't have the same impact as if they came into this, serene, welcoming setting that they felt like they were actually in a hair salon, even if they didn't have any hair. So it was that was my first tweak, that just, this is so exciting that I can impact someone's health and well-being in this way. And so, I just started doing some interior design courses online part-time, and I found that I loved everything, even the all the assignments, even the ones that everyone was complaining about. I was loving them, and I thought, God, if I love study this much, if I love even the boring stuff this much, I have to do it. I have to do it in my life.
So, a couple of sayings. Home is where the heart is.
Yes. Yeah.
And if I just look from a cynical perspective, everyone thinks interior designer, they think BMW, blonde hair, sipping champagne, spending copious amounts of money and doing up big places in Toorak and South Yarra. But it's actually a lot deeper than that, isn't it? And it's very, very important in our environments that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the stereotype. And to be honest, that's exactly what I thought. We were very working class family. And so under no circumstances were you ever going to engage in an interior designer in the households that we were growing up in, my family. And we just got by. But there's so many little elements that plays into it. And it's not just paint choices or changing cushions, which is what I always get, oh, Tara, great. Tell me what cushions I should get. But, I know that you had Carla on as your guest a little while ago, and hearing her talk about the sleep impacts, or rather the impacts on your health and well-being if you don't get enough sleep. And, you can do all the great behavioural things around sleep that you like. You can go to bed at the right time, you can eat great things at the right time and do it all. But if you don't have blockout curtains, or if the temperature's wrong, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get the sleep. And so just little tweaks like that, making sure you got block-out curtains in the bedroom, making sure the temperature is right. I mean, that's pretty huge. And
Mm.
a lot of people get it right, but if you get it wrong, it can really impact what you're doing and how you're doing it in your home.
It's funny, my wife and I live in a very old home,
Yeah.
and the renovations are ongoing and slow. But wherever we've lived, the priority has always been the children's room to be as comfortable and as safe and as enjoyable as possible. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think she was thinking I'm an interior designer, but it's very true what you say. If you don't have the environment right, then these other things probably won't work, will they?
No, no, that's exactly right. And like a lot of people do it quite instinctively, like what you've done with your homes and the children. You know that you have to have safety, security, and good sleep with the kids because you know if they don't get that right, then you're not getting safety,
Mm,
security, and sleep.
mm,
So you've got this instinctive desire to get this right. And probably there's a bit of trial and error over the years to have known what's worked or not
mm,
worked in that space. But um my friend had an experience where they just got a builder in and the builder said, yeah, you can do this and we'll do this and we'll work it out. And the trend was for open plan living. And so they did open plan living, but they've got they were two boys. And so they were in primary school at the time. And open plan living has really ruined them in terms of family because these boys are just so rambunctious and running around everywhere.
mm,
And had they thought a little bit about how they want to use the space, how they have downtime, how they want to relax, how they can get the most out of the boys' behavior, but not have it being the whole entire family situation. So, they've got to now spend money to change it or not have any relaxing spaces for the adults because all is loud boy energy now in that house.
mm. It's funny you should say that. My wife continues to push for open plan living, and we're in an Edwardian, and I like being segmented in different areas.
Yeah,
The dog
yeah.
certainly does.
Yeah, that's right. So there's safety in that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's, we from an architectural perspective, we remain interested in our spaces with the more twists and turns that there are. So,
Mm,
if you have some secret nooks and crannies and doors that shut off here and there, you're more likely to, have enjoyment in your house for a little bit
mm,
longer if there's some interest in the layout there. So that's not too bad. But you got to think before you do that open
mm,
plan. You
mm.
think if they're driving me crackers, where am I going to relax? Am I going to be able to have my time? You think about the functions in the day and how do I relax and how am I going to get more of that good energy, that good atmosphere that you're trying to create, rather than the beauty. Because I think that's where maybe some of those bigger TV shows you get a bit excited and you see what's possible from a beauty perspective, and not necessarily actually how am I going to use that
Yeah.
functionality.
So on that, what's wrong with modern living environments? Is there a theme that you've seen?
There's a few bits and pieces. So, I think one of the things that I hear about lots and lots and increasingly is the poor building biology. So, the mold stuff, our houses were built, a lot of our houses were built on practices from other countries. Settlers came in and built things from European houses style, and it's not necessarily for our climate. So we've got an increase in mold illness going on. We've got all the volatile organic compounds, the VOCs from paint, from new cabinetry, from carpet, upholstery. And that's okay for a little bit of time, but there's so many people that are experiencing allergies, asthma, all these things that are being triggered by chemicals in our home. So that building biology stuff is just getting a little bit louder, and we haven't done that quite well, or maybe kept up to speed with that. I think our houses are massive too. In Australia, I read a statistic that said that Australia per capita or per amount of people living in has the biggest size houses in the world. So we don't need the sizes that we're
Mm,
having, and therefore they're expensive to buy. We're using far more materials than we need, and they're expensive to run. And
mm,
perhaps there's all sorts of social issues around. You
mm,
can't see your kids because they're in another wing, or you can't hear the teenage conversations, which sometimes is lovely. but perhaps you need to be a little bit around your family a little bit more to have social cohesion. And they're not always good for the environment.
I see it in the area that I live in. People buy a lovely old home, they have a lovely big backyard, and then they put this big box on the back and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
lose all their yard. What is the thinking? What's the psychology? Why do people do that? Why can't they, as you say? So, as someone always said to me, you can only be in one room at a time. Why build these massive, massive, massive homes if one, even with all of you in it, you're never going to fill it? Why are people doing it?
It's actually hard. It's actually hard not to. There's not as many people saying, you know, I love to live in this small house as there are people saying, gosh, I'd love a bigger kitchen, or, you know, we see what's potential. We see an entertaining kitchen, or we see the houses on the block, or even the new homes these days. Most of the basic new home packages have got powder rooms, extra studies, extra bedrooms, a media room. I mean, you know that there's an increase in media,
Mm,
not just media to watch TV, but full entertainment
mm,
units. Because
mm,
they've seen it's possible. Most of the standard packages come with too much these days, and it's actually
yeah.
an effort to pull it back to create. And so we see so much of it that we think that that's normal. That's the norm, and it's, of course, an architect is going to encourage you to go a bit bigger and better because they want to have a flagship house that is
Mm.
gorgeous and amazing. And yeah, it's hard to pull back.
We actually we had plans approved to have quite a bit done to our home.
Yeah.
Same footprint, but expanding upstairs, and finances at the end of the day, just in the current environment, it was going to put too much pressure on us. But we've now gone back to our existing plan that we have, and
Yeah.
we're having a builder come in and he's just doing room by room. And
Mm.
it's really funny. We would like this and that, but I wonder whether we need to move. Do we need to move back to more towards more what Europeans do?
Well, it's one of the solutions. There's a few architects that are going around, especially when we're looking at the environmental elements of it. A
Mm,
smaller footprint is always going to be better from an environmental perspective because of the less materials, less heating, cooling products, all that sort of
mm,
stuff. So from that perspective, there are more and more voices coming out into the market to talk, you know, really promoting smaller footprints around that sort of stuff. So I
mm.
think we're going to hear a few more benefits and people talking about that and describing it.
How does our relationship with nature impact our homes?
This is my favorite one, Ross. This
Mm.
is the big one. Have you? I want to ask. Have you seen the statistic about what percentage of time we spend indoors in our lifetime?
Well, the statistic I'm familiar with is that we were built to spend at least 80% of our time outdoors, but we spend like 3% outdoors or something now on average. Is that right?
Yes. So, you know, Australia, UK, America, we sit around 90% of our lives indoors.
Mm,
And lots of that is sleeping and work. So work is
mm,
is a really big
mm,
part of that. And
mm,
yeah, there are so there are so many articles, there is so much research around the physical benefits of being in nature. Your um, water research, there's a
mm.
whole lot of stuff, you know, there's the blue zone, there's the green zone,
Yeah.
being in, you know, the nature, the forest bathing. Um, and so we know that nature is so good for our mental well-being. It
Mm,
reduces our heart rate, mental health, helps us concentrate, and yet we're building these boxes. So there's all these little tricks that you can do to bring a bit of nature back indoors so that you can
mm,
have some of that mental health, acknowledging that we're still living the life that, you know, if we're not going to live in the forest
mm,
or we are
mm,
going to work 9 to 5 jobs that are in an office, then we need to bring
mm.
some of that inside.
Yeah. Um, how's our mental health been impacted by this move indoors?
Oh, look, it's pretty big. And I think there's so much, like there's a bit of research now, especially around children and how it's impacting. There's some really great research around children in schools and the impact of, you know, sitting your bum on your seat and not moving and not getting out and using those natural play-based activities to learn. So there's a bit of research coming in around that side of things, and that just keeps going up in terms of our ability to, regulate our emotions, concentrate, focus, pay attention, all those sort of things, and relationship stuff. So that social cohesion is impacted because our hormones and our emotions are regulated more so in nature than it is in a non-nature based environment.
Does it amaze you that in a country such as ours, with such affluence, that we unfortunately still have people that don't even have the privilege or the right to worry about
Yes.
internalizing because they don't even have a home?
Yes, yes. And in fact, I volunteer at a place called You Matter, which supports women escaping domestic violence. And they have volunteers that when a home, like when a rental comes up and someone is escaping domestic violence to come into this rental, it's obviously, like, we've been into some pretty crappy houses that, there's holes in the bathroom floor. There's, I can see the mold on the walls, but it's all that can be arranged and afforded. And they often just go in with a plastic bag, and if they don't have anything else, it's more comfortable and sometimes safer to go back because of the mold, because of the cooling, and because all they've got is a plastic bag. And so this organisation gets donated products, and then we go in and do like a big blitz and set up the whole entire house, and then the person comes in. I was just saying that not only is it these women, but it's also people experiencing homelessness in other areas. And your home is such a safe space, and we don't, it just blows my mind that that I'm agonizing about what curtains to get, and then somebody doesn't even have a space.
Can you give me the website, please, of the You Matters? Because I think that's a really important one that I think people listening and watching, if they had an excess of properties, perhaps they could even put one forward for these women and these homeless people. What's the website?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll leave it with you. I'll send it to you because I can't think of what it is off the top of my head, but
Well,
it's something like,
I'll put it in the show notes,
yeah,
and also
yeah.
put it up on the screen.
Because they also accept, fridges, desks, beds, bedding, clothes. It's just really beautiful the way that we can set up a house
Yeah,
in a couple of hours.
it's disappointing, isn't it, that we're even having this discussion in a country such as this?
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous. Yeah, absolutely. And I have found it difficult to sometimes to consider being an interior designer that obsesses about the cushions on a couch or whether to have an extra bedroom or not when there's this sort of stuff going on. So I think for me it's important to have both sides of it, to have the volunteering element that acknowledges and respects that times are incredibly tough for others, and the other side of it.
What what are the most important factors for children in a home to feel safe and healthy and happy?
Um, Access to you, depending on the age, it's access to you. There's a prospect and refuge theory around safety and in your home, which not surprisingly also has come from a nature perspective. So it's this theory that we need to be able to prospect, to be able to see, you think about that we're on a African savanna and we're watching the dangers. We need to be able to see the dangers as they're coming. So children like to be able to have a safe space where they can see, out the window, dangers, whatever, but they can also feel safe. And so sometimes it's really nice for them to have that refuge side of things, which is cozy, cave-like spaces where they can be in a cocoon and be nurtured in that space. But biggest element is, I think, access to people. That's where that size of the house comes into it, is that, from being able to hear you, see you, have access to you at times when they need a good sleeping space for them. That some of the principles that we think about for adults, like the block out blinds, natural textures so that their bed is, that's breathing and not too hot or too cold, is also part of that priority.
These things. Do we
Oh,
have to have areas in the house where these are not? And if you go into how important is it to have a room where people come in, you're there to, it's set up to exclude devices?
Research suggests that that's incredibly important. So there's a lot of child psychologists, psychologists in general for adults as well, that are talking about how important it is to have that break. And you can tell the difference when devices aren't allowed at the dinner table. The conversation is so different, but it takes a little bit of time to get into that. You can't just boot it out if that's what you haven't had. You need to build into that. We don't have devices after dinner time or access to it, because I think our family needs to wind down and not have that input from any devices. They're not allowed in the bedrooms or the bathroom either for exactly that sort of reason. But it's our kids I've got 13-year-old twins, and it's just getting really hard for them to have that break from those devices, because they're probably the only ones out of their friendship groups that do have that break. Carla had such a great idea that she charges her devices in a cupboard overnight. And I love that. Immediately went to see if I had PowerPoints in my cupboard, and I don't. So was like, damn it, why didn't I interior design my own pantry before, so I could hide my devices in there at nighttime? So yeah, I think it's incredibly important to have systems and structures so that you make it easy for yourself. When I was saying to the kids, no, there's definitely no devices in the bedrooms. I want you to have that time away from it and your break, and I need you to be able to read and relax in your room. They were so upset because they just wanted to listen to music, and music is now all on their devices. And so we had to set it up structurally so that they had Bluetooth and they could still have their own time. So it's not as easy as just saying, nah, they're out. You have to put some things in place.
Can we help our physical health with good home design?
Yeah. Well, the sleep is a really good one, a really good example of that sort of stuff. Even things like decluttering, not having clutter around. And there's research around that if your kitchen is cluttered, you make different eating choices. So women especially, are prone to overeating. If they're trying to be healthy and well, they're prone to overeating if their kitchen is not designed well, or it's decluttering. There's how large fast food chains, they design their colors so that you eat more and more, with yellow and red, which red is a real passion, I want more, and yellow is something that says I want more as well. So colors will make an impact on that sort of stuff as well.
Famous restaurant of red and yellow, isn't there? What about our mental health? We've touched on it a little bit. How important is our mental health in regards to the layout and design of our homes?
Well, I think that if we're spending 90% of our time indoors, we've got to put some of that stuff as a priority. We're not paying attention to what we could do around our mental health. So when we talked about nature, that's I think that's where the biggest gains are to be had around mental health in your home. So having access to nature inside, and so it could be one plant. So studies show just incredible things around plants. So one plant, being able to see one plant inside your house, these studies said that it increased potential happiness by up to 78%. And that just knocks my socks off, that I can be happier, 78% happier, if I just have access to an indoor plant. And that just shows how powerful nature is. If you have access to timber, so just having some tactile access to timber, so if you reduces your heart rate. So if your bed is made out of timber and you are getting into bed at night and just touching it as you go in, and then it reduces your heart rate and potentially has the ability to impact your sleep from that perspective. Linen or organic products, if they're nature, they're a little bit more nature-based than others, then they're breathable, they've got less chemicals in them, they're better for the environment. So that the lack of chemicals is going to be better for you for asthma and allergies and all that sort of stuff. Like wool, if you've got wool, is better for reducing mold in carpets, and also has less chemicals. But it's the nature stuff. So that the timber, if you're decluttering, if you've got really great storage and you don't have clutter around, then you are more alert, you pay attention, because your brain is not focused and continually sorting things out or wondering where things are. So you can, I think the plant stuff, the nature stuff has the biggest benefit. And workplaces too. So if you have access to an open window or a view in your workplace, it can increase your attention and your ability to concentrate by 10 to 25%, according to these studies.
Well, there's that joke too. Why do managers have windows? So they've got something to do in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yards are smaller.
Yeah.
What are some things people can think about with the layout of their yards, just as far as them, I don't know, being as friendly as possible and getting the most out of them?
Yeah, I think it's about what your function is. So yards and nature have a really great way to create another room for you. And so there's a really great gardener at one of the hospitals, and he's got a really good social media thing. And he talks about that, if you have a space to connect with people, so even on really small spaces, so if you've got a small balcony, if you set up a space that you can connect with people, so that might be a little deck or a little courtyard, and it can be tiny, comfy chairs, a table. So you set it up so that you are more likely to want to be there and connect with someone. Then there's the refuge side of things, a place to escape. So somewhere that you can have somewhere to escape and enjoy being in nature, so that you do get those benefits of being out in the environment with the fresh air, decreased issues around mental wellness, all that sort of stuff. You just want to create somewhere that you like to be in. And so maybe it's a bit of interest too. So colour, a story, so a pathway that leads from one spot to another. And I've got a very small yard, but I'm on I border onto a reserve. And so I'm very pleased that the council mows my reserve backyard every day for me, or, regularly for me. But I still have that. I've got a very small space, but it meanders. So I've got the back deck with a chair that I'm out there morning, noon, and night, if I can be, looking out to the reserve. And then there's a pathway that leads to another spot, and a little cozy nook for somewhere else. So it has lots of different functions, and it's still a very small space.
You go into someone's house and they want you to optimize their sleeping area.
Oh, yes.
Top 5 things that you would look at.
Okay, top 5. I'd look at their block-out blinds. I'd look at their temperature. I'd look at their bed comfort, pillows, mattress, the actual bed size. I'd look at clutter. Usually when I go into someone's house to optimize, I'm getting stuff out. You got too much, move it out, give you some space to walk around. And a strange one is where your tech is, whether you've got too much, that buzzing sort of stuff going on, either, because some people's, the main bedroom is often right at the front of the house, and it's often right on the electrical board that's out the front of the house.
Yeah.
And so that's been shown to impact your sleep and your health incredibly. So sometimes the bed position, not only for that, but also that this prospect and refuge theory is that we feel safer when we can see the window and the door. So sort of like all the places that an intruder can get you, we feel safer that if we can see those and not be snuck up on.
Window open for some fresh air or closed? Is there
for sleeping? Well, definitely fresh air all the time, as much as you can, except if it's going to impact your sleep, if it's going to move your curtains, create a bit of light, then no. And like sound, in terms of, you want to have a nice quiet space. So I don't want to hear the hooligans next door. So my window is firmly shut at night and then open as soon as I get up in the morning.
It's it really is interesting. So as we said at the start, interior designer, there's the stereotype, but I think I can speak for most people. When you get home, you want to be able to do your own routine. You want comfort, you want to be shut away from the world, and you certainly want your children or your family or whoever is there to be comfortable. It's so important what you do, Tara. And I think what has just made it even more extraordinary is you are a real social warrior, because the volunteer stuff that you do for these people in need, like particularly the women that are trying to, I can't even imagine what it must be like for a female to just want some safety. Um, so, firstly, thank you so much for what you do for our society, but also thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really interesting. And I think when people watch and listen, they'll realize that it's not champagnes, convertible BMWs, and cushions. It's actually helping people with their mental and physical health. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.